The best estimate by leading vaccine producers is that it could take a year or more to develop, test, and manufacture a vaccine for the clade X virus.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. You know, is the price worth it? That the price, we think the price is worth it.
Richie Brown Show.
Okay, welcome to another program of the Richie Brown Show. Today I have the fantastic guest, Dermot Hudson, who's going to tell us all about his trip to the DPRK.
Right. Hello, Richie. Thank you for inviting me on to your show. I had a great time in the DPRK, really fantastic, and perhaps a bit depressing and disappointing to be back in this capitalist shithole called Britain.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine it must be a huge boost to the soul to see a society in action like the DPRK, whereas you come back here and you know, people are just beaten into the ground.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you can't really compare the two. I mean, one thing I noticed when I got back and I had to go into Bromley town centre to pick up a few things, what I noticed was how badly people actually moved around the streets here. You know, there was people shuffling about, people just getting it in the way, and people moving without any purpose. And in the DPRK, when you see people on the streets in the mornings, they move with purpose. You know, they move with some kind of goal that they're going to achieve. And I think that really exemplifies the DPRK and the spirit of the DPRK. They are moving towards goals. You know, it is a planned society where they're actually building socialism and communism, and they're going forward towards the future of communism. You know, people have got definite goals in mind. You know, everything is totally functional.
Yeah, there's a big difference between being a worker in the DPRK, because you're actually working to a social goal. So the work you do, the labour you do, takes on a social significance that it doesn't otherwise, like in a capitalist country. So people are just completely apathetic in this country, and they don't care about anything. They seem to,
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right, because the wealth produced by workers in the DPRK benefits not only them, but the whole society. Part of the social product that they generate goes towards funding education, social services, housing, the health service, and so on. And in the DPRK, production is not for profit, it is for use. And the products they produce are socially useful. There's no production of useless items like we have in capitalist societies, like pornography, like addictive drugs, and all kinds of things that are either useless or harmful. This doesn't exist in the DPRK at all.
Yeah, I saw the OnlyFans company. It was I think it was something like 36 billion. Let me just check how much it's worth. Yeah, so it created a revenue of 1.3 billion in 2023. And that's just the kind of society that we're creating now, isn't it? And I don't know if you saw The Economist. They put a favourable tweet out about Bonnie Blue. I don't know if you've heard of that woman, but yeah.
I've vaguely heard about her.
Yeah, so I guess we can start at this point. Many British workers got a rude awakening with their relationship to the British state in 2020, or, you know, the transnational bourgeois class that rules the entire world, that see Britain as nothing but an economic zone to be governed. But they watched in real time, like, lies 180 degrees away from the truth that they were told on the media. And other nations had similar experiences, like the Canadian truckers, where whatever they said was just reported the complete opposite of the truth in Canada. And they ended up having like martial laws put out in Canada. Do you see the veil of like elaborate and, you know, kind of crude propaganda against the DPRK falling from the eyes of British workers at all?
I certainly, the propaganda against the DPRK is so intense, and it is 24/7. And it is quite relentless, and it just gets worse and worse all the time. I can't start to list the kind of lies that are told about the DPRK. And there's also the very personal vilification of the leadership by the Western media, and that's really the idea that if you can focus on attacking leaders, you can actually demonize a cause. And this has always been very much a stock tactic of the imperialists. But just to reflect on when we were there, we were all going around in a bus seeing different sites of Pyongyang, and we went out at night a couple of times. And one of the things I've seen it said about the DPRK is there's no electricity, or there's very limited electricity with power cuts all the time. But the streets of Pyongyang were literally a blaze of colour. I could see it from my hotel room. I could see the Juche Tower lit up, and also we could see different streets of Pyongyang lit up, and with shops and restaurants. And I think a couple of us we were talking about this picture that is dragged out every so often. I mean, I think it's actually quite old now, probably about 20 years old, which is allegedly a picture produced by the US NASA of a satellite image of the Korean Peninsula. Now, of course, NASA itself is not to be trusted because it is really part of the US military. People don't realise that. It is part of the US deep state. It's actually engaged in very secretive work. But they produced this picture where the southern part of the Korean Peninsula, the south, the Republic of Korea, as it were, the occupied zone of Korea, because it's got about 30,000 US troops there and bases, is shown as, all bright lights. And the DPRK is shown in total darkness. And I'm pretty sure that picture has been faked in some way. It's been altered. It almost looks as if someone just took a heavy black marker pen and drew over the DPRK. But we all agreed that this is a fake picture, that it's not real. It doesn't represent the DPRK at all. That's just one example. And also this business still gets trotted out. They're all starving, which is complete nonsense. You see happy, well-fed people, and if Koreans were starving, how on earth could they carry out massive construction projects? How can you build whole skyscrapers and new greenhouse farms on an empty stomach? It's simply not possible. That's some of the blatant lies about the DPRK. And these are broadcast to the TV, through print media, through the internet, through social media, and increasingly you're getting very dumbed down, cartoonish versions of it through YouTube. But in terms of will British workers wake up and see the reality, that is a very big challenge, a very big job that we need to do, because this kind of propaganda is deeply ingrained. However, some people are skeptical. I think there's always been people who will say, oh, well, you don't want to believe what you read in the papers or see on the TV. I think that is healthy. And I think if we're able to conduct our work more effectively through different platforms, through different mediums, we will challenge this propaganda, and more British workers will see the truth about people's career.
Absolutely. So you want to tell us a bit about your trip that you've just been there?
I mean, it was an amazing visit. I was there as head of the British group for the study of the Juche idea. We were there from the 7th of October to 14th of October. The purpose of the visit was that we were invited to take part in the celebrations of the 80th anniversary, the foundation of the Great Workers' Party of Korea, which of course is the ruling party or guiding party, if you like, and it is the force behind all the achievements of the Korean people. So we were there for those celebrations and to take part in an international seminar on the Juche idea that was organised as part of that. Now, one of the myths we hear so much about the DPRK is, oh, it's a very isolated country. But that is also just rubbish. The celebrations were attended by not only many Juche idea followers and friendship organisations from throughout the world, but significantly by leaders of the Russian Federation, of China. You know, I know not everybody likes China, of Laos and Vietnam. There was a delegation of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela there. There were delegations from the Islamic Republic of Iran and Nicaragua. I mean, I was on the same plane as those delegations, and we disembarked from the plane delegation by delegation, and they were called out to leave the plane, and they received a round of applause. I think reflecting the militant anti-imperialist spirit of many of those travelling to Pyongyang, and we were invited by the Korean Association of Social Scientists, and we were taken by bus to the Pyongyang Koryo Hotel in the centre of Pyongyang, where we were staying. My guide was Mr. Kim Yong-chol from the Korean Association for Cultural Exchange with Foreign Countries, formerly the old Korean Committee for Cultural Relations with Foreign Countries. It's basically a friendship organisation, and it's like the KFA's partner organisation in the DPRK. So we travelled into the centre of Pyongyang, and even just on the bus, we were very impressed. I saw a new factory had been built. The rice paddies looked abundant with good crops, no sign of crop failure. And, you know, there was a whole new district that hadn't been there the year before, literally. You know, it had been built out of nothing, whole new district, huge blocks of flats, pedestrian underpasses, bus stops, everything really, you know, incredible. And we received very good hospitality. Everybody where we went was saying welcome. There was plenty of food in the hotel. Each hotel room had mineral water, carbonated pear drink, and even bottles of beer, sweets on the table. It was quite good. And it's very difficult to sort of say everything, so I have to compress and summarize. So I'll just concentrate on a couple of things. We participated in the in the International Juche seminar. I would stress there was two of us on the delegation. One was the other person was an English academic, and the seminar attracted participants from a wide number of countries. There was a very big Russian delegation there, 20 strong, and also a delegation from Belarus. Brazil managed to have two delegations, so I think there was about eight Brazilians there, so they had quite a big delegation, and then there was delegations from Asian countries like India, Nepal, Japan, and Indonesia. A lot of European countries were represented, despite the hostile propaganda against the DPRK in Europe. There was the UK, there was Austria, there was Germany, Italy, Romania, Bulgaria, the Czech Republic. It was, quite an impress. Or Poland, should have mentioned Poland. It was quite impressive, and there was two 2 days of seminars. We went to the national meeting in the Mayday Stadium, which of course is one of the biggest, or if not the largest, stadiums in the world in terms of seating capacity. There we were very close to respected comrade Kim Jong-un, who actually made a short speech, which was followed by a very spirited rendition of the Internationale by both a military and civilian choir combined. And then there was the set piece DPRK mass game, mass gymnastics, involving people doing gymnastics, and against the backdrop of pictures which were being created by performers rotating pieces of card with different colours, which again, I think that symbolises the great discipline of the DPRK, the sense of purpose and the unity of the DPRK. We attended the Grand Military Parade on the evening of October 10th. The DPRK a few years ago switched to nighttime parades, midnight parades in some cases, and the parade was carried out not in easy conditions. It was actually pouring rain, but they still went ahead with it and did a very amazing parade, which was actually better than other DPRK parades I'd seen. Again, where to start and where to finish. So I'll just again highlight one or two features of it. In the parade, they included the KPA troops who'd fought for the liberation of Kursk, and they had a Russian flag as well as a DPRK flag, which I think is quite unprecedented for a foreign flag to be seen in a DPRK parade. And I think what impressed a lot of people was at the end, they brought on the intercontinental ballistic missiles, which were huge. And an Italian friend near me remarked, "That is for Washington." And
That's fantastic news. So they got a new range of continental ballistic missiles, didn't they?
yes.
Yes. I mean, NATO's a murderous criminal enterprise, killed its own people under massacres like Operation Gladio. It's attempted to expand into Ukraine with the CIA and Victoria Nuland overthrowing the government in 2014. So what's the role of the DPRK troops? They've just been protecting Russian land, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, their role has been purely defensive. It is according to the provisions of the Treaty on Strategic Partnership and Cooperation between the DPRK and Russian Federation that was signed in June 2024. And yeah, I mean, their role has been purely defensive. They've just been on the soil of the Russian Federation, not in Ukraine, as was propagandized by the Western media, who got into hysterics and basically said that, the DPRK was effectively invading Europe, and this was a terrible thing.
I saw the Ukrainian propaganda was like that as well. I saw a lot of them. They'd find like an Asian Russian that was obviously because he's Russian, he's a soldier in the Russian army, and they'd say that we've got proof of a DPRK soldier in Ukraine, and it was just complete rubbish.
That's right. In fact, no KPA soldiers were captured alive. That is a fact. So these were fakes, that the Ukrainian fascists were sort of trying to present and pass off as DPRK KPA soldiers. But I mean, basically, the KPA troops defended the Russian Federation against invasion by Ukraine, which was fully backed, in fact, manipulated and instigated by the US imperialists and the European Union to attack Russian territory. And I think it was significant that this is probably the first time for a long time that the DPRK has directly engaged imperialist backed armed forces. It's probably, first time for a long time. Of course, it's not the first time the DPRK have sent troops abroad. We were in the Great Victorious Fatherland Liberation War Museum, and the guide drew our attention to a display of pictures of KPA Air Force pilots in Vietnam who fought with the Vietnamese people against the US imperialist aggressors, actually shooting down 50 Yank planes and destroying 10.
Incredible. So the global oligarchy, particularly like EU, NATO, US axis, seems to be gearing up for a world war as the currencies collapse. I mean, everyone's feeling that in their pocket. Everything costs so much more. Is the DPRK prepared to defend their homeland against this?
Yes, very much so. They are putting a lot of emphasis on defence upbuilding, the work of improving military capabilities, both in terms of training troops and also developing military hardware and developing different kinds of missiles, including intercontinental ballistic missiles, and also developing the Navy. And we were able to visit the Korean Revolution Museum, which is the building behind the very well-known statues on the Mansu Hill. We were able to visit that, and parts of the exhibition, as it were, within it was about the line of building defence and economy in parallel, which was put forward by respected comrade Kim Jong-un. So, I mean, the DPRK is prepared, if necessary, to fight the US imperialists. Marshal Kim Jong-un, in his speech in September, said, they were, in fact, he reiterated what he'd said a few years earlier. They were prepared for both dialogue with the US and confrontation, particularly confrontation. He didn't actually rule out having talks with Trump, but said that if such talks happened, they would not be about denuclearization, that the DPRK will never denuclearize. It will never give up its nuclear weapons.
Good to hear, because, Libya took a different route, and they found themselves at the end of a regime change war in 2011, didn't they?
Yes, that's right, yes.
So, looking at sort of well, to me, it looks like an explosion of building, of erecting new houses. I was just reading the Pyongyang Times to prepare for this interview, and they got a beautiful new construction at the Pothong Riverside terraced houses, and they look absolutely amazing. And in the article, it was saying that the houses were allocated to workers who were labour innovators and who had made a positive contribution to the prosperity of the country. Could you give an overview of like the explosion of building construction in the DPRK?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly can. I mean, the homes that you're referring to, we actually went past several times. I've got some fairly good pictures, considering they were taken from a moving bus. I've got some pictures of those. And as you say, they were given free of charge to mostly ordinary workers, but of course those who had worked hard. But among the inhabitants are trolley bus drivers and also a street cleaner who is very well known in the DPRK, but also the famous DPRK newsreader Ri Chung-hee actually lives in one of those apartments. Essentially, at the 8th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea, which was in 2021, and of course they're now gearing up for the 9th Congress early next year. The program was put forward to build 50,000 new homes in Pyongyang, and also to construct many homes in the countryside. And as you say, it is like an explosion. I mean, it is a boom. I don't like to use the term boom in regards to the DPRK economy, because it is a planned economy with a steady development, but it's not so easy to find words to describe it. And like you said, when we came in on the bus from the airport to the hotel, there was this whole new street. In fact, not just a new street, whole new district that hadn't been there before. And we had a nighttime excursion to Hwasong Street, which was has been opened in stages, and now they're actually working on the 4th stage of Hwasong Street, and we could see huge public buildings under construction, and we could see a lot more flats under construction. I mean, by the time this is finished, Pyongyang, I think, would be almost double in size, and that there's going to be whole new districts of Pyongyang that never ever existed before. So it is an incredible change. And though I've been visiting the DPRK for 33 years now, I shudder to think that I've aged so much. But 33 years, 20 visits, I can't really say that I've seen such massive construction work going on like that before. Certainly it's true that it's sort of the pace of construction in the DPRK picked up I think in the last 10 years really, and maybe to some extent before, but back in the 90s you didn't see much construction work going on. You saw some, but not on this massive scale, which it would cost billions and billions in the West to do. I mean, when I lived in another part of London, the council spent £300,000 on just moving a few paving stones about. So now, if it costs that much to do that, you can imagine, building 50,000 new homes would be like. And of course, this is being done not in nice, easy conditions with lots of outside aid, but in fact in conditions of very severe sanctions by the US and the UN.
Did with the sanctions because obviously DPRK signed that Russian military alliance, does that mean that Russia doesn't sanction DPRK anymore?
I would surmise that is the case. I mean, in fact, I think by having military cooperation with the DPRK, they've basically driven a cart and a horse through the sanctions. I don't know about other things, but I mean, it would be now, I think, also pointless and counterproductive for Russia to try and enforce sanctions against the DPRK, because Russia itself has been sanctioned by the imperialists.
Yeah. They're on like their 15 round of sanctions against Russia, so I can't see why they would abide by any sort of UN rules.
That's right. It's a very different situation compared to 2016, 2017 when the Russian Federation did vote for the sanctions against the DPRK, and I think did try to enforce them as well. But it's a very different situation now. And he really also, I think, takes the biscuit for the imperialists to expect Russia to enforce sanctions against the DPRK while itself is actually sanctioning Russia.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of, I mean, inflation is on the talk of everyone in Britain. Do you see, why don't we see inflation in the DPRK?
Well, I think there's reasons for that. I think the basic reason is a planned economy where prices are controlled and where you have state planning commission and a state price commission which control prices. And I can say that I didn't go around and examine every single item and didn't write down the prices of every item. I consider that to be a very boring thing to do, and it might look strange, but just roughly the prices look the same as in 2024 and in 2019, and one or two items seem to have gone down in price, but I don't know whether that was due to currency conversion changes or not, but they did seem to have gone down. I mean, also, I think another reason is that the DPRK, as far as possible, strives to avoid printing money. The budgets are, I think, again, approximately balanced. With, I think, I'd have to look at the figures again, with a very small surplus, not a big surplus, but they do not go in for certainly huge deficit spending like the UK and like the US, more so with the US. And of course, just before I was heading out to the DPRK, the US had actually gone into shutdown because they couldn't agree on budgetary figures. The US is basically a bankrupt economy. Though a lot of people don't realise it, and I think with the UK, it's quite one hell of a big mess, and I think we're bracing for both big cuts in public spending and rises in taxes.
Absolutely. I'm just checking the US debt, and it's almost at 38 trillion. That can't carry on forever.
Well, I think it's been unsustainable for a very long time.
The worry is, though, is that when they do go bankrupt, the only thing they can do then is take NATO to war, and that would look like probably a world war, wouldn't it?
Yes, I think there is a danger of world war with Russia, and also on picking up on a lot of stuff about the US trying to invade trying to invade Venezuela.
Absolutely, they're looking around for a target they can attack, aren't they? So a lot of the problems with the Soviet economy, a lot of people said that there wasn't enough light industry and stuff like that. Are workers getting more consumables and that kind of thing, or in the DPRK at the moment?
Yes, very, very much so. I mean, there's more consumer goods and more food being produced. There's a bigger range of clothing available. There's all sorts of different food available. There's also DPRK mobile phones available, being made. Small computers, tablets, all kinds of things are being produced in the DPRK. And in DPRK, basically, even in the 50s, they set forward this line of developing heavy industry and giving it priority, but at the same time, simultaneously developing light industry in agriculture. So light industry was not ignored. And in fact, in the last 2 years, you've had this regional 20 by 10 development policy, which aims to eliminate any disparity between regions in the DPRK, and the aim is for each of the 20 provinces of the DPRK to build 20 new factories, and these are going to be mostly light industry, producing consumer goods and producing things like soft drinks, confectionery, maybe clothes or shoes. So it is going ahead quite a lot.
Excellent. Should we expect deflation according to productivity increases? Is that how it works in the DPRK?
If by deflation, do you just mean prices going down, or do you mean a sort of recession situation?
I think it would be price reduction, wouldn't it?
Price reduction. Yeah, I mean, a higher productivity. Yes, it would mean prices going down, and the DPRK's always had a policy of trying to reduce the costs of production so as to reduce prices.
Excellent. I think I've reached about the end of my questions, Dermot, unless there's anything you feel like I should ask.
No, I think covered a lot of things. All I would just like to add is that we were able to visit the new Central Cadres Training School, the Workers' Party of Korea, which the other person in the delegation remarked to me that, it was the size of a medium or large size British university. And that is where the cadres of the Workers' Party of Korea are trained, and they can be, they can attend re-education courses there. And I think there was several very significant features of this. I mean, one was that the portraits of Marx and Lenin are displayed very prominently as you enter the campus. They are there, and there was a hoo-ha created years ago when they when these portraits were removed from Kim Il-sung Square, when it was actually remodeled and reorganized. In fact, other things were removed from the square, and position of some things were changed. But there was a hullabaloo that was actually started off by NK News, the CIA backed propaganda front, about the portraits being removed, and that got taken up by mostly by ultra left critics of the DPRK, but also some revisionists, even very, I thought, rather cheekily, started shouting about DPRK abandoning Marxism-Leninism, even though they'd abandoned it themselves. But these portraits have been sort of given a prominent position in the school. Marxism-Leninism is part of the teaching syllabus there, and we were told that respected Comrade Kim Jong-un attended a lecture on Marxism-Leninism himself. And there's each lecture room has a red flag displayed at the front, and again, Comrade Kim Jong-un had actually suggested this himself, saying that we must believe in the red flag of communism. And I think that it's very significant, because it shows that DPRK is holding fast to socialist principles and to advancing towards communism. And I think we need to defend people's career against not just the bourgeoisie and imperialists, but some so-called critics on the left, principally like revisionists, but also the liberal left, and some of the ultra left, who appear very active on things like Twitter, I think maybe Discord, but probably not anywhere else, probably not on the streets.
Good to hear. Thank you for coming on, Dermot.
Thank you very much, Richie.